for the steps that you're going to be taking in the next few weeks, like mixing those vocals and things like that, it's important that you set it up on the MBox, save it, play it through, listen to it on your headphones, but when it comes to mixing the audio, we can switch it back to this 5.1 system to monitor it through the speakers. But that's only after we have everything recorded. Okay? Does that make sense to everyone? Why you would do that? Okay? Now, on that station over there, we have the advantage of the speakers work with the MBox. Okay? Here we have a special speaker setup that's coming through a PCI E-card on the back of that. So we actually have two sound interfaces for this, if you will. One just for playback, though, and that's the 5.1 system. And this is for recording and playing back when you're doing sessions in Pro Tools, okay? So that is where you're going to have to go to change your audio hardware setting, okay? It's under the hardware preferences menu on the top of Pro Tools, okay? And it's very similar in Reason. You go to the options menu and you can see all of your preferences there, audio, MIDI, advanced MIDI for like controller, adding a new controller or something like that. They're pretty straightforward things that once you double check that box says MBox and this box says MBox and your inputs and outputs are correct, you should be good to go, okay? Now, in addition, I've already created a project, a blank project with 2 mono audio tracks on it. So all you have to do is come in here, plug in the microphone, make sure your settings are right, put your headphones on, and record. It could take as little as 5 minutes to do this homework. Just come in, plug it in, boom. Hey, this is my BS talking. But I do want everybody to make a short clip, 1 minute or less of audio, okay? Is that cool for everyone? Anybody have any questions? Yes.
I'm just picturing the scenario where I get here, I plug in my stuff, and I press record, and it doesn't work. Nothing happens. Or whatever. Okay. What do I do?
Grab a microphone. Cry. Grab the microphone, bring it over here.
$2,000 something.
Selective withdrawal immediately.
Selective withdrawal.
Take the shake.
I'm going to see where he's plugging it in.
Thank you, sir. Okay, where did this crappy microphone?
You're putting that up on Blackboard, right?
This? Maybe. How much money you guys got? No, I'm just kidding.
You can start your own tutorial website.
Okay, so what are the steps? It's a good question. It's a totally logical and straightforward question that we must answer, because if it doesn't work, you're not going to be able to finish the project, right? Okay, so the first things first, check your connections. Okay, this is step 1 in any audio troubleshooting. Check your connections. Make sure the microphone is securely plugged in at both ends here. Make sure your USB cable is plugged in for your interface. Make sure your MIDI devices are all plugged in here. Sorry, that was weird. Like a vibrator pack in the controllers? This felt like it was vibrating.
I know another kind of vibrator.
So let's check and make sure this is working, right? Because if it doesn't work, we're going to have to fix it. But the next step is to make sure that our microphone has signal. Okay, so we can tell right there, just by this signal LED, that indeed we do have some sort of sound signal coming in, right? Now the next step is to check and see if that is coming into Pro Tools. If our audio from the MBox is coming into Pro Tools. And then the way we have to do that is take a look at our input and output section, okay? So there are like 2 or 3 different tiers of hardware and input-output and disk allocation of all of this stuff. So we need to take a look at that. Let's open up. The session is just called voiceover session. And if you want to just export a basic sound file of like voiceover session with your last name behind it, something like that, okay? So in Pro Tools, remember we looked last week at Pro Tools, and you have this input and output section. So our input and output section controls where the audio is coming from and where it's going to. Now we can route it internally in Pro Tools to a different channel, or we can route it externally to the M box or any other available outputs that we have. In this case, it's our M box, right? So first things first, when we select our input for channel 1, I'm selecting audio input 1. I arm it for recording, and then you can see right here that we have visual confirmation that audio is coming into this microphone, okay? You can see it on the meter. If everything seems to be right, everything's wired and clicked correctly, and you're still not seeing this, it perhaps may be just a setting on the hardware itself where you don't have a loud enough signal coming in, or maybe this button is selected where it selects between the front and the rear source. Things like that you have to check and make sure, double check yourself. Make sure the phantom power is not on if you're using a regular microphone. Things like that. And then finally, the last step to checking to make sure that we got a signal is to actually record something. So we'll pull up the transport window, which if you remember is sort of like our remote control. And with the audio track activated, flashing like this, we'll hit record. And it's giving us a count off of 2 bars, which is playing in the headphones, theoretically. Yeah, so now we're recording through this microphone into Pro Tools, and basically anything you say into the microphone and then are able to export will suffice for this assignment. Okay, so it's up and running. I expect that every one of you will be able to do this for next week. No excuses, because it works, right?
What a great punchline.
But there are going to be bonus points for those of you who come up with something interesting or witty. If you want to write a little original monologue or dialogue script or something like that, of course, that's always possible. I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to leave this plugged in here, okay?
Nice.
It's plugged.